A few days ago, a group of scientists, doctors, environmental organizers, and concerned citizens got together and they called for the urgent stop to the deployment of 5G. They said that it's been proven harmful to human bodies, that this is an experiment on humanity, and that this should be called a crime under international law.
"5G is a weapon. It's used by the military. Do you know these 5G millimeter wave technologies are used to scatter crowds? They drive up in this technology when they want to scatter a cloud, and they put out these frequencies in a much higher power than 5G will be initially with us, but the same frequencies. And people scatter because they get the feeling their skin is on fire. Because the human body, including the skin, is an antenna. It interacts with frequencies and it receives and transmits information. At the cutting edge of understanding of DNA, scientists know that DNA is a receiver-transmitter of information.
I have to tell people 5G story. It's bigger than the Holocaust. It's bigger than anything you've ever heard. I'm Mark Steele. Anybody who hasn't heard me. I'm a weapons systems head-up display expert. I'm one of the leading experts in the world. I've actually brought cover in relation to this, and the reason I became an expert was because I invented 5G is a killer. Do not believe a single word I say. Not one. I want you to do your own research. You'll find it's absolutely terrifying.
There are going to be boxes broadcasting 5G, this weapon, down every street, all over the world.
What we're concerned about 5G is that it's going to require a transmitter about every 3 to 10 homes. So you're talking about a small cell tower placed in front of your home.
Because at these high frequencies, you can't have...
It doesn't travel very well.
Yeah.
And people need to understand, it's 24 gigahertz to 90 gigahertz. These are not 2 feet. These are 2 inches to half an inch. And this is very dense wireless radiation hitting our bodies. What we know is that it pulses more, it's got higher frequency, more waves per second, it beats up the cells more.
Let's talk about today's technology, what we have going on today. Your phone is constantly sending electromagnetic fields in and out of each other. Whether or not you're receiving a notification right now, all of our digital tech sends this data back and forth, right, using these invisible microwave radiation signals. That's today's tech. We have every cell tower, every router constantly pulsing with radiation, whether or not you're using it. Science shows that this causes DNA damage, cancer, among other things. But don't take my word for it.
And that's just with 4G.
That's just with today's technology.
Before we get to 5G, right now you got some of it, but not that much.
Wireless radiation has biological effects, period. These effects are seen in all life forms: plants, animals, insects, microbes. In humans, we have clear evidence of cancer now. There is no question. We have evidence of DNA damage, cardiomyopathy, which is the precursor of congestive heart failure, neuropsychiatric effects. So 5G is not a conversation about whether or not these biological effects exist. They clearly do. 5G is a conversation about unsustainable healthcare expenditure.
So we are electromagnetic, electrical organisms, transmitters and receivers of information. When our electromagnetic fields are in balance and harmony, we have health. We have psychological health and we have physical health. The reason that this technological society is causing so much psychological and, quote, physical disease is because these frequencies, technologically driven, and we live in this Wi-Fi world now and all the phone masts and all the rest of it, these technologically generated frequencies are scrambling the balance of the human electromagnetic electrical communication systems. And if you scramble them, you create a state of disharmony, dis-ease, which plays through to physical and mental, emotional, psychological dis-ease. And there's another point to this. The brain processes information electrically. It communicates with the cellular structure electrically, and it operates within a certain band of frequency. If you can broadcast frequencies carrying information, this technology has long been known, carrying information and perceptions within the frequency that the brain decodes information, the brain will decode those frequencies and will have those perceptions. You can influence people's perceptions externally by broadcasting these frequencies that we interact with, because we are antenna. Okay. Now, some decades ago, there was a guy who worked out the frequencies of different emotional states. This is long ago. I mean, it's very, very sophisticated now. So every thought, every emotional response is a frequency. It generates a frequency, and it is of itself a frequency. Hate is a frequency, and it's different to love. You know, when you are in a room and there's lots of aggression and conflict and hatred, you feel it. What do people say? Oh God, you can cut the atmosphere with a knife in there. That is because the frequencies of hate and conflict have been so generated, they have changed the electromagnetic field of the room.
Okay, so 5G is going to be weaponized against us potentially.
Yeah, but the point being that they worked out the frequencies of various emotions, including rage and what have you. And basically, they can play across a community these frequencies without anyone knowing, and it starts to have an effect, and it starts to build rage, it starts to build anger, and people might not realize why they're feeling it, but they start to feel it. And then what they do is they trigger that with an event. Maybe some guy is attacked by the police or something, or somebody's arrested for something they didn't commit, and now there's the trigger. The blue touch paper's been lit of this manufactured frequency-driven rage, and you have mass riots and what have you, and people do things that they wouldn't normally do. And you can make people depressed. You know, the American military, they've admitted this. They have technology that fires frequencies at the enemy that basically breaks the enemy's spirit so they give up and put their weapons down. This is the technology we're dealing with. Now you take that into account and then you think of 5G. First of all, 5G doesn't travel well because of the nature of its frequency. So instead of big towers, as we have now, broadcasting these frequencies long distances, it won't do that. And it doesn't go through solid objects, what we call solid objects, very well either. So to overcome that, there are going to be boxes broadcasting 5G, this weapon, down every street, all over the world. You're talking phenomenal numbers of these boxes, broadcasting like on the lamp standard outside your children's bedroom and stuff, broadcasting this stuff. There's nowhere you'll be able to go where you'd be in a field of 5G. And another interesting thing, I don't know whether you've noticed this, but the story broke first of all in Sheffield, when the council started cutting down literally thousands and thousands and thousands of mature trees in urban streets. And there were big protests about it. You know, Sheffield claimed to be a green city, but all these mature trees were coming down, thousands of them. And my brother, he works as a call-out bus mechanic. So a bus will break down, they'll call him, we'll come down and fix it on the side of the road. So he's traveling all the time. And he's saying it's amazing how many mature trees are being cut down. Now, the worst nightmare of 5G in a street is mature trees, because it can't get through them. They don't want urban trees for 5G because it won't go through solid objects very well at all, and it doesn't travel far. So we're going to have this explosion of 5G transmitters, and then, going back to what I said earlier, and they've admitted this too, there's going to be like 20,000 satellites up there beaming 5G at the Earth.
What is our exposure in a day? It's not one cell phone. It's cell phones, it's multiple wireless networks, it's smart meters, it's cell towers. It's this sandwich, and it all adds up. And this is a serious problem for occupational health, public safety, and personal safety. And I feel that it's irresponsible to be even talking about the Internet of Things and rolling out a new untested technology when we're not even measuring what are our current exposures from the current networks.
The issue with millimeter waves is they don't travel very far at all. Each transmitter will have an effective range of anywhere between a few hundred meters to 1 kilometer. Unlike what you may have heard, 5G can penetrate walls and windows, it's just not very good at it. And thick walls will significantly dilute the signal strength. So, in dense urban areas, the transmission range of a single 5G antenna could be less than 100 meters, far less than current 4G. Furthermore, the 5G signal range will be absolutely destroyed by rain. The high frequencies employed by 5G are easily absorbed and thus halted by water. And yes, in case you were wondering, that includes the water in the human body. The ingenious solution to 5G's lack of range is more antennae. A lot more. Luckily, 5G antennas can be far smaller than their 4G equivalent. New backpack-sized boxes, called small cells, will be placed roughly every 250 meters around cities. They will be on lampposts, traffic lights, the side of buildings. There may be one or more coming soon to your street. They act like relay stations, repeating a signal from a much larger base tower somewhere nearby. These tiny boxes will form a huge web that is sufficiently large and dense that it can fill in any blank signal spots, overcoming the issue of poor 5G range. The antennas will also employ a technology called beamforming. This essentially means that instead of indiscriminately shooting out 5G signals in all directions like 4G does, the signals will be sent directly to your device. The web of small cell antennas will triangulate your exact location at all times, so it knows precisely where to shoot the beams. They will even be able to calculate how to bounce beams off windows and other objects to reach you. The issue is that to do all this properly, thousands of small cells are needed. It's estimated that New York will require over 10,000 small cell antenna boxes to provide the entire metropolitan area with reliable coverage. You won't be able to turn a corner without seeing one of these things. Companies all over the world seem to have a stick up their respective rear ends to get 5G to everyone, everywhere. AT&T says it will have nationwide 5G coverage in the US by 2020. And Vodafone and EE in the UK have already turned on 5G in some cities as of May, and 15 other UK towns and cities will have coverage by the end of the year. If these mobile giants are so keen to get 5G on the table faster than fish and chips, then there must be some serious commercial benefits, far more so than 4G ever offered. The problem is that 5G waves carry significantly more energy than 4G, almost as much as a microwave oven. Turning entire cities into constantly on microwave ovens sure sounds dangerous to me. Many people, including some in the science community, have expressed their concerns that the high frequency, high energy 5G radio waves could interfere with our DNA, cause cancer, and could even be militarized. Because water is excellent at absorbing 5G waves and human skin is peppered with sweat glands containing a lot of water, some think that during riots the police could turn up 5G emissions in the area to hugely increase the body heat of the rioters. This intense feeling of burning all over the skin that it could cause could give them no choice but to disperse from the area. All this sounds very dystopian, but what's the truth? Well, we don't know yet. For every expert opinion and study that says 5G is totally safe, there is another that says it might not be. For RF waves to interfere with human cells, it has to be ionizing radiation. This is a type of very high energy radiation that carries sufficient energy to detach electrons from atoms inside your body. When ionizing radiation hits the human body, it disrupts the atoms and the chemical bonds that hold our DNA together. With enough exposure, this can cause cancer and other issues such as lowered fertility and birth defects. As far as we are aware, the worst thing that non-ionizing radiation can do to the human body is heat it up a little bit. And that's only a concern at very high intensities, as we've discussed earlier. Literally thousands of studies have been done on the effects of non-ionizing and ionizing radiation, and yes, a few experiments with rats have thrown out some odd and worrying results. It's easy to get carried away when an odd study now and then produces a disturbing result, but one should always exercise caution when using such a result to outright ignore a mountain of evidence to the contrary. After all, scientific studies can be deeply flawed in many ways, on both sides of the argument. All this means that if 5G does pose a risk to human health, it would have to be through a mechanism that we are not currently aware of. Something that truly flies in the face of our current time-tested scientific model of how radiation works. I'm not saying that it's not possible, it's just improbable. But the nature of science is to keep asking questions and testing new theories. After all, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Do I think we should really be testing out the effects of 5G on human health before a mass rollout? Yes, absolutely 100%. Many in the scientific community, even those who have no current concern over its safety, think that it's irresponsible to roll out this tech without more time to thoroughly test its real-world effects and consequences. Unfortunately, we're not going to get to that luxury. Hundreds of billions have been invested into 5G tech by mobile companies in every major nation. There are huge profits to be made and massive potential, so 5G is coming whether you like it or not. Only time will tell if we all have two heads by the end of it.
Alright, so 5G sure sounds like a promising new technology, but some are concerned it may have adverse health effects. In November 2018, a social media post went viral and it suggested that in the Netherlands, 300 birds had died due to 5G testing. Forums are awash with activists suggesting that the dangers of cell phone radiation are being suppressed. So does 5G actually have health effects? Or is it just a conspiracy theory that's getting a little bit out of hand? Whack on your tinfoil hats, we're going to find out. Okay, so why are people afraid of 5G? One word: radiation. All of our connected devices emit radio frequency electromagnetic energy of various wavelengths. Low frequency wavelengths are used in, say, powering your smartphones, TVs, and computers. And this is referred to as non-ionizing radiation. It's not considered energetic enough to cause any health effects. On the other side of the spectrum, you have high-frequency wavelengths such as ultraviolet radiation from the sun or X-rays. This is a more powerful type of energy and it's known as ionizing radiation. It can rip electrons away from atoms and do some real damage to DNA. And if you're exposed to a lot of this type of radiation, like say some of these beachgoers may be, it can introduce errors into your DNA, causing the growth of diseases such as cancer. Well, there are a few important changes coming with 5G technology that have some people concerned about the negative health effects. One, it'll use millimeter wave technology. Two, that technology operates at higher frequencies than 3G and 4G. And three, that means we'll need more base stations and antennas to ensure we cover the same ground. So how exactly will millimeter wave technology affect the human body? We're going to need a diagram. The skin is a very effective barrier against things like bacteria, viruses, and even the weather. Now here's the thing about 5G. Ionizing radiation, such as some wavelengths of UV from the sun, can penetrate the skin. Whereas things like radio waves actually penetrate through the skin, 5G wavelengths fall smack in the middle. Many opponents of 5G point to a World Health Organization report in 2011 that suggests cell phone radiation could cause cancer. Now that report was put together by the International Agency for Research on Cancer and suggests that cell phone radiation should be listed as possibly carcinogenic, like aloe leaf extract, diesel fuel, and pickled vegetables. So I asked Andrew Wood, a professor at Swinburne University, exactly what that rating means.
If there's any evidence of some sort of association between exposure to these things and certain types of cancer, then it goes into the possibly carcinogenic bracket. If it's backed up with laboratory studies, mechanism studies, then it gets boosted up to the probably carcinogenic bracket.
Thousands of scientific studies have been performed looking at radio frequency radiation and its effects on human cells, animals like rats and mice, and human tissue including brain, skin, and eyes. And there's literally mountains of data and mountains of research. But take a look online and you'll find hundreds of websites and Facebook groups with a laundry list of problems apparently associated with 5G. So we've taken a look at this list and we're going to clear those things up. Roll that clip, me. Thanks, Jackson. Mark is ready. So 5G is new and untested. Well, actually, 5G isn't new. The wavelengths have been used in airport scanners and radar for a long time, and high-frequency wavelengths are worse than low-frequency wavelengths. Well, that's not the case for ionizing radiation and other radio waves. I mean, even visible light can penetrate the skin if it's powerful enough. And of course, 5G is a mind-controlled experiment. Two of the most frequently mentioned studies are, one, the US National Toxicology Study, and two, a study by Italy's Ramazzini Institute. In both studies, male rats that were exposed to huge amounts of radio frequency radiation sometimes developed cancer in their hearts and in their brains. All that is to say that many of the arguments against 5G are not based in strong scientific fact. Despite that, over 240 scientists and researchers have petitioned the World Health Organization Environment Program to take another look at the damage radio frequency radiation may be having. And not just on humans, but also on the environment. And one question that remains is, can we actually rule out the long-term effects of exposure to 5G wavelengths? So where does that leave us? Well, on one hand, we need more good science. We need more research into 5G millimeter wavelengths and long-term studies examining how exposure affects human health.
All right, just getting the hell out of Sydney. We've been down the city centre. They've been down the city centre. Oh my God, there is 5G everywhere. They've even hidden them in the lampposts. Don't believe me? Watch the video. You're in for a shock. It's time to go. I'm gone. I'm gone. In the middle of George Street, Sydney.
Wow.
Is it? Is it? It's them, isn't it?
So we're not quite sure about this, but every about, I'd say 100 meters, there's what looks like a lamppost. At the top of the lamppost there's a cylinder. Now we're not too sure whether this is actually emitting light or if it's actually a telephone communication system, i.e. a 5G cell tower. Because when we are walking through this road, we're getting non-stop high readings everywhere.
They're everywhere. This road is
Maxed out.
oh my God. Hello Telstra, how you doing?
A headache, just here, just standing here.
Yeah, this road is rancid. Look at that red. I wonder what's causing this. Yowzers. Yowzers. That is a constant red.
Oh my God.
We are on the road adjacent to George Street, and as you can see, it's a very nice signal. And as you can see, there's nothing on the lampposts.
It's all very odd and suspicious if you ask me.
Context, this is my AC Wi-Fi router, and at 2 meters away, it's on 2 or 1 green bar. If I go in for it to be 1 meter away, you can see that it jumps up, but it's still in the green, and maybe 1 yellow bar at most. If I go in really close, about 10 centimeters away, that's where I get to the red danger zone levels, and even at that, it's still lower than Sydney levels. So living in Sydney is like living constantly 10 centimeters away from your Wi-Fi router.
Please join us as we embrace the future together.
over at the end of George Street where they haven't yet installed those lamppost lights, or so-called lights. You can see that they have set up dodgy AF 5G cells right there, right conveniently where there's no more of those lampposts, and they're still currently building out whatever could be inside those lights.
When I think Trump tweeted out something in 2014, and he said, remember, China is not our friends or not our ally. And he got like 300 retweets. It wasn't something big. He tweeted this back in 2014 or 2015. And then all of a sudden, you know, one day, everybody in the news is talking about 5G. And prior to that day, we weren't really talking about it. And all of a sudden, hey, we got to be the leader in 5G. I'm like, 5G? So I'm going to start looking 5G. Okay, 1G, 2G, 3G. 1G is the regular phone back in the days. 2G is whatever. 3G is the iPhone, you know, and then 4G is the latest phone. And then now 5G is going to be changing the game. And most people go to, well, 5G is just a faster phone, right? Because that's what initially, we've always seen the G linked to a phone. Oh my gosh, I can download a movie in 3.6 seconds now on Netflix, a 2-hour movie, where before it was 3 minutes or 6 minutes, whatever, right? When you think about 5G, what do you think about of 5G and the capabilities and what it can really do to whoever that has access to it?
That's a good question. So if you go back to 2007 when the iPhone came out.
2007.
The top 5 in market cap were AT&T, General Electric, Microsoft, ExxonMobil, and Shell. Right? The phone comes out in 2007. I had one, 3G network. It's not a very good experience. 4G network comes out. By the way, we're the second country in the world to build a 4G network. Now you've got something, right? So when Steve Ballmer laughed at Steve Jobs, said, we don't need one of those. When you took the platform, which was the iPhone, and you married it up to the 4G network, which was the pipe for data, and it was a fast enough pipe, now you could create the apps, services, and business models that in 10 years led to the top 5 in market cap being Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, and Microsoft, right? So the Chinese see this and they're like, the platform and the pipe. So the smartphone, this iPhone, you know, which was the first one, then Android. So Apple and Google, right, dominate the mobile platform that the app services and business models of that economy are built on. Fast forward, you know, to 2009, China starts to look at that, says, okay, we want to dominate the next level, right? Not just the technology, we want the app services and business models to be Chinese companies. And so Huawei gets hundreds of billions of dollars to develop 5G and ZTE. But then you have Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent. So they're behind the Chinese firewall. They're protected. You can't have the fangs going in there. It's just the bats that control the e-economy within China. And then you start, at the same time you're developing 5G, right, the platform, and I'll get to that in a second, but you're also developing Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent. So now when you walk into, and you're starting to see the emergence of the 5G world in China. So you walk into a restaurant after you've ordered your food, and a camera picks you up and you say, hey, David, welcome, here's your food. Right? So you're starting to get the feel of what a 5G world is. And what is a 5G world? The platform is the network. So this is mobile computing paired with a pipe. 5G is computing and networking combined on the same platform. So this goes away. You walk outside your door and you say Uber. You don't get on your phone and say, I want an Uber. You just say Uber. Camera picks up your face or a microphone picks up you.
Come on.
That's what 5G is. That's what 5G is. And then the Uber shows up. There's a camera on the car that sees you, knows who you are, don't have to ask you your name. You get in and you go to wherever you want. You get out and you go do whatever you want. So in this world, in the 4G world, this is a platform. It's yours, right? You don't want to be part of that, all of that data. Remember we just talked about how do you influence society? You don't want all that data to be out there about what you're doing. Don't carry one of these, right? Just opt out. In a 5G world, you cannot opt out. Who owns the data? This, you could conceivably say, you lease the data on here you own. If you're getting Google services, you don't own that data. But in the 5G world, not only can you not opt out because it's built around the city, it's not in your phone anymore. not only can you not opt out, you don't know who owns the data. Everything that you do can be watched. And for every person by 2022, there's going to be, there's 2 cameras for every person. There's two people for every camera in China by 2022.
They have 1 billion right now on surveillance.
Right,
A billion cameras in China right now.
With artificial intelligence for facial recognition, right? So all of this is getting built right now in China. And who's helping them do it? Microsoft, Google, right? All of these companies that want to deploy this world into our country. So Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent, that's where the world goes. It goes from 2007, AT&T, GE, and Microsoft to the FANGs to the BATs, right? Who owns the pipes? Me as a B2 guy, the first thing I look at in the country is where's the telecommunications? You've got to take that out, number one. But if rather instead of taking it out, you own or control it, so Huawei builds the pipes, then because you're behind the Great Firewall, you've built the app services and business models of the 5G world. And you're, like I said, you're already starting to see that. You know, where your facial recognition is built into your interaction when you go into a restaurant, or when you go into a store, or when you go into a bank. You know, everything's about, you know, the device is connected. Then as you build the network, then those proliferate. So 4G network, 10,000 devices per square mile. 5G network, 3 million devices per square mile. You're not going to carry 12 smartphones. You may not even carry a smartphone.
10,000 to 3 million?
10,000 to 3 million. That's what 5G does. The connectivity explodes, right? So that allows you to put devices literally everywhere that can make your life more convenient or can track you. There's a bike in DC. It's called Mobike. Have you seen these things? They're silver and orange. Look out for them next time you're in DC. They're silver and orange, called Mobike. They had them when I was in 2016 when I get to Beijing. You take your phone, and by the way, I took a phone, right, a phone that I threw away when I got home, and I had said,
You threw it away when you got home.
I threw it away when I got home. Load all the apps on it that a Chinese person has so I can understand what they do. You never have to carry a wallet. You never have to carry a key. It's all done on your phone. You can pay anybody, anywhere for anything, and they do. 900 people are on WeChat, and they spend 90% of their time in app doing things, or ordering airline tickets, buying food, whatever you want. You can have anything you want.
900 people or 900 million?
900 million people. Okay, so let me explain to you how effective what they built is. I have one of the guys working for me on one of these Mobikes. Now, the Mobike it's just parked there in the street with a lock on it. You go over, you hit a QR code on your phone, it unlocks the bike, you get on it, you ride it, and you lock the bike. Okay, so where does that data go? They know it's you. You got on that bike, you went 2 locations, okay, or you went to a location, so that data is available. So I have one of my guys, he gets on a Mobike, rides somewhere, has his iPad in the basket, gets off the bike, comes back to the embassy, and realizes, I forgot my iPad. Goes into the regional security office and says, I forgot my iPad and my bike. Calls a local public security bureau, and those guys call the guy that's got his iPad on his phone, on his cell phone, and say, can you bring the iPad back to the embassy? That's how wired Beijing is right now.
5G is coming.
5G.
5G.
5G. 5G.
Well, technically it's here. Kinda. Maybe. Slowly. 5G uses a totally different wavelength than the 4G standard your phone currently uses. The 5G standard uses millimeter waves, which are a lot shorter than the wavelengths 4G uses. The shorter wavelength means 5G can carry a lot of data much faster than 4G, but it also means a much shorter range. 4G wavelengths have a range of about 10 miles. 5G wavelengths have a range of about 1,000 feet, not even 2% of 4G's range. So, to ensure a reliable 5G signal, there needs to be a lot of 5G cell towers and antennas everywhere. We're talking on every lamppost, traffic light, etc.
5G isn't going to be cheap. Each node or mini cell tower needs some kind of connection to it, and that means laying down fiber optic cables. And it's still an undertaking, and it's definitely not in the millions. It's definitely in the billions, possibly hundreds of billions.
Not only will this cost billions of dollars, but there's also pushback from many local communities.
One of the biggest problems they face is actually local governments, local communities, who don't want these carriers to build towers or antennas all over the place. Or maybe they're afraid of the health risks, which is another big concern.
Some are concerned that 5G radiation may cause cancer. The FCC so far has said that there aren't any problems or concerns with 5G radiation, but they have said they still need to do more research. Despite all that, Verizon already rolled out the beginnings of its 5G network to parts of Chicago and Minneapolis. AT&T currently has about 19 cities with 5G capabilities.
5G is said to be a super open highway with many, many more lanes than the 4G LTE highway, which means a lot less congestion, even during peak hours. I do estimate that eventually even 5G will be congested with the number of people connecting to it and also the extra stuff that's going to be used for 5G, at which point we're going to have to step over to 6G.
So while all the carriers are already starting to tout their 5G capabilities, don't get too excited